Hey everybody, and hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for watching my channel. Thanks for tuning in, and much appreciated as always. So the year's almost done. Feels like it goes by fast every year, but hope everyone had a great year. And yeah, I just wanted to say that. And again, thanks for all the conversation and feedback. I've learned a lot. It's kind of my goal is to learn and share as I go, and talked to a lot of great people and made some great new friends. So I think it's wonderful. So thanks again. Subscribe if you haven't, and give it a thumbs up if you like the video, or thumbs down if you don't like it, or just let me know any thoughts or ideas or questions that you have, as usual. So I've been trying to put this together for myself over the past few years, and I think I've got my own personal version anyways, I guess, of belief or truth as far as existence, or my own personal theory or ideology about what is this, where does it come from, and what happens when we die. And we all have that, I think, to a certain degree, even if you don't believe in anything. I believe once we die, that's it. That's a belief in and of itself right there. So, but I wanted to share what I've had so far, at least part of it. I want to do another video kind of on the whole idea of, and put forth kind of the theories as well, as far as trying to make it sound as logical as possible, because there is an understandable truth to what everything is, and that's what I think is fascinating for me anyways, and to try to figure out. But recently, and I think I did a video on this a couple years back when I was first starting out and was kind of more unsure. But to start with, I just want to kind of explore the reality, or the what exists physically, period. So I started asking these questions and comparing my notes and checking what I had before, and then asking, excuse me, trying to ask for the answer and like channel these answers as usual. And here's where I'm at so far. Just to kind of preface everything. So remember, everything has a duality, so an opposite, or if you name something, then it has an exact counterpart. For example, light, dark, hot, cold, simply put. But as far as the foundation of existence itself, of all there is, there's a very important duality to call out, which is physical and non-physical, because we're both. We exist with both. Our minds and our souls are non-physical, but our bodies, of course, and this reality that we operate in is, well, it's both. It's both as well, right? But it's so it's not mutually exclusive. It's not one or the other. On any given moment, our consciousness and our awareness, we use this to navigate life, using both our non-physical and physical faculties and senses and abilities and things like that. So as far as where this all comes from, there is, to start with, some both observable, somewhat observable, but at least understandable theoretical truths. We can at least start with the idea of, what's a good way to put this, I guess? Infinity itself, space, because if we really start with the most basic concepts, the space-time continuum, which is, I believe that's what they call it in science, for example. You hear it in Star Trek too. So what that simply means, the two are inseparable. They're one and the same. So space is infinite. Theoretically, space goes in every direction forever. It's the infinite space-time continuum. And as you move in one direction, you're automatically moving through space. So time elapses from one point to the next as you move through it, right? So that's why it's the space-time continuum. They exist at the same time, no matter what. And remember, there's nothing, you can't run into any boundaries. If you remove all qualities, all physical qualities, and you start with just space, there's nothing but space. Because once you run into something, like, what is that? Is it a barrier? Is it a wall? How thick is it? And then what's on the other side of it? There can't be nothing. There simply has to be more space. So nothing being the idea of, empty space goes on forever. So there literally can't be nothing. There can't. It's impossible. So the idea of space removing all other qualities is literally just a theoretical reality. And, no matter how far we can go in one direction, it'll never end. So starting with that, recently too, we've been able to map and identify and study and experiment with this energy that exists within the space-time continuum. And it's just as space goes on infinitely. In other words, you can keep doubling a number, and space, it's infinite. So the number just keeps doubling forever. And it can go in both directions too. So, for example, if there is this distance between my hand's right here, and then if I cut that in half, and cut that number in half, you can cut a number in half over and over, and you will never reach zero. It just keeps getting smaller and smaller. So if you think about that, that's pretty insane. It's like you can travel inward too. Space is infinitely small, just as equally as it is infinitely unending as far as large goes. So that being said, there is energy that literally is part of this fabric, the space-time continuum, that is everywhere. It is, and this energy exists as basically, I think, some call it potential. I think it's light or photons. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm no expert. But I'm trying to convey my understanding, and hopefully this is right. But it is teeming with energy and what's referred to as zero-point energy. Because remember, as part of space contains this energy, and space is forever large and forever small, it contains infinite energy. And we can tap into this. This is the same energy. If the fabric of space goes on forever, and it's just teeming with energy that it's literally like vibrating and resonating with pure potential. Because after a while, for whatever reason, if this energy starts interacting with each other, this is the idea of the Big Bang. Right, this light energy, or that exists as light waves, if you will, before it becomes like particles or like dense physical matter. It exists in the form of potential energy before it collapses into physical matter, if you will, a more dense form of it. So eventually potential begins to interact with each other, and this energy builds up. And that's the Big Bang theory, because we can measure how everything's expanding outwards at a certain speed. And just the idea that energy, this light compound, pressure, heat, just kind of builds up and then eventually explodes outwards and then scatters matter everywhere. And then it kind of settles in, cools off, and then creates gravitational fields and light, all this massive cool stuff we see with the telescopes in space. And the rocks and dust and particles, and they evolve, and then suns and stars, and everything just kind of settles in, and these systems form of like the universe. And it's still expanding outwards. So that's how we can kind of measure, at least based on our current limited abilities, the magnitude of the power of this initial explosion. So now, recently, as I've been getting into UFOs and everything, I'm thinking, well, if this is true, if infinity makes density relative, completely relative. This kind of blew my mind maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, I think. Meaning, remember, if everything has a number quality that could be assigned to it, if something's physically dense, it has like certain characteristics you can assign number qualities: weight, thickness, heat, height, whatever that is, we all exist within this range of frequencies, right? Like we can call it 3D if we want, the third dimension. Physicality, this table, my hat, my body, everything like this. So this is all can be measured. But if numbers can be infinitely small and infinitely big, that means life can exist on different frequencies. Density is only relative. So that means there's an infinite amount of qualities that could be assigned a physical number, and an infinite amount of dimensions, if you will. So the way I'm using the word dimension is just like within our known current kind of frame of existence, of reality. So we have cars are physical, the sun is physical, these walls, my home, I'm physical, but there's different degrees of density. Like we can't see radio waves or cell phone waves, stuff like that. So, but there's different degrees of physicality that are still relevant to our kind of contained dimension, our contained system of existence. But this exists within a realm of infinite possibility, which is kind of cool. So I thought, well, if, like our eyes can only see what evolution has, as it unfolded, allowed us to see, through trial and error and what's useful and that sort of thing. Because remember, telescopes can see things. There's night vision goggles. There's all ways to see different aspects of physicality that we can't see with our own physical eyes. So it got me thinking, like, what else evolved on these other dimensions? Because we hear about that when you read about like aliens and UFOs and stuff like that. It never made sense to me until recently, but now it's making more sense. So I asked the question, if, as far as we can track to, how many Big Bangs there have been? Because it makes sense, the most ideal way to get the most amount of physical just matter and all sorts of types of energy as far outwards as possible would be like massive explosions that kind of scatter everything and that allow for time for things to kind of settle in and cool off and evolve and interact and things like that, So now this is kind of fascinating but terrifying at the same time, as far as we can only track back to this a certain degree. So this infinite space-time continuum has always existed. Some people ask the question, if this is forever, or if God is like, putting from a spiritual standpoint, if God is, infinite, what came before God? And you're like, well, God is infinite, so there is no beginning to infinity. The idea of that theory is true, but that's like saying, at a certain point, consciousness has to start. Right. And knowledge and awareness and the building up of experience and abilities and things like that. So it's actually doesn't make theoretical sense to say infinite wisdom and power and possibility have always existed in the form of ultimate omniscience and omnipresence and omnipotence all at once, because something has to predate that. Like, not just everything happened all at once, Infinite space is a reality, and it's out there, meaning, at a certain point, things began to evolve. So even the idea of an all-knowing God has to start somewhere. It just doesn't make sense that everything just existed all at once at all times. Maybe you can believe in that or theorize that, but to me it doesn't make sense. But so everything has a starting point. It just does. So it made me wonder, at a certain point, did we lose certain universes or, types of existence? Because what if eventually, conscious life evolved and existed and then was destroyed somehow, and then universe became nothing all over again. Eventually another Big Bang happened. So that's what makes the sacred nature of life so sacred, and why it has to be preserved, so that, because the possibility of pure elimination and reverting back to nothing, pure space-time forever, and then having something just kind of gradually evolve over time again? It's possible, but that means everything is lost. So, but the idea that something will start up again eventually is theoretically true, but frightening, to think that. So, anyways, before I get too far off topic, I had asked the idea, well, we exist kind of in what we refer to as this one physical universe. But now I'm understanding, because there's these aliens, and there's been a lot of talk of this, and there has for decades too, not just recently, but about interdimensional beings who exist on different frequencies. And from what I gather so far, here's the main key points I was kind of excited to share, that I wanted to put out there as food for thought. Because if anything, it provides some good information to kind of turn over and ponder. But the idea of other dimensional life is just real. They're starting to admit it more and more, and theoretically it just makes sense. And so many of our trusted astronauts and people in high level of governments and whistleblowers are coming forward and saying, this stuff is true, and we have more and more proof of it over the past few decades. So the thought of the possibility of these things is now becoming real. And of course, the government knows a lot more than they're telling us, but there's a lot of reasons for that too. So anyways, I've heard this higher order of beings called the Galactic Federation of Light. So that's what I call them. One of the Israeli retired generals even referred to them as a Galactic Federation. In New Age circles, it's the Federation of Light, this interdimensional collection of evolved beings or civilizations. And from what I understand, this is true. Even this retired Israeli general has confirmed this and said there's a galactic federation of highly evolved beings, and other scientists out there, whistleblowers too, people directly involved with government programs have said the same kind of thing. So not only are we not the only ones out there, but there are other beings that are physical in our frequency, but also that exist in other dimensions, that have been around far, far longer and have reached extremely high levels of technology and capability and longevity. They can live almost forever, and they can travel instantaneously throughout space. And they have this massive capabilities they can source 0-point energy and create matter, which we started to do, believe it or not. And I just did a video on it. So we're actually getting there. These theories are actually coming true for us. So eventually we'll reach the state of post-scarcity and the ability to source 0-point energy and harness our technology for benefits of eliminating things like limited resources and that kind of thing. So, but these massively evolved, benevolent civilizations exist out there. And you're probably wondering, why haven't they stepped in? Why haven't they? There's a lot of reasons for that. And I talk about this in some other videos, and it makes sense. I won't get into that too much right now. But they are out there, and they're so powerful, too. They could blow this planet up into nothing if they want to. But they have this evolved non-interference protocol, and they observe and they wait for us to reach out to them, and then gradually we have to earn our way into this level of power. If you think about it, it makes sense. Just like how we try to control and maintain and mitigate harm, and use things like nuclear power for good, not weaponry. We're still ironing it down here. So if you can imagine, if ultimate infinite power fell into the wrong hands down here, we're not there yet to share amongst humans. But so anyways, the idea of the Big Bang, this is all, I'm a firm believer in evolution. I believe that gods and spiritual beings and things like that exist, but no one omnipotent, omniscient being created everything that was physical. This evolved, and evolution occurred in the non-physical realms too, like the spiritual realms. Same idea of evolution applies. It's just slower and more gradual in the physical realms. But so these beings exist, but there's no like control or overlap or direct interference. We can communicate with them, but their ability to affect things physically is very limited. Like I can't just make my car move with power of my mind. So we're getting there. I mean, with Neuralink and technology, that's a possibility. But like non-physical, like the power of my thoughts, and things like that. There's still a separation, but there's, in other words, and it has to be harnessed through careful understanding and technology. That's why everything we wish and with our thoughts and everything doesn't manifest immediately, because all these rules and systems that are in place. But we can kind of override that eventually with technology, which is pretty crazy. But okay, so I had asked, well, as far as the Big Bang, then is that what started our physical universe that I live in, for example? Okay, so the answer was yes. So that's again, I'm a firm believer in evolution, not creation, from like spiritual beings and stuff like that. So all this physical stuff, the Big Bang Theory is true in that respect and how this all unfolds. And I was like, well, as far as you guys can track to, I'd asked, how many other Big Bangs were there that sourced something similar to our universe? And the answer was several. So several that still exist. And I had asked, are these universes connected? In other words, did like a Big Bang happen here, and then everything kind of unfolded, and then within this Big Bang, as it was unfolding, another one occurred, and then created more dimensions this way, or that way. So these occurred. There were several that occurred throughout space-time that are far from that are separate, like, so they're kind of contained within their own explosions, if you will, their own fields of influence. So one explosion occurred here, and then everything that we kind of understand on a basic level that caused our universe to evolve occurred in several other spots throughout infinite space-time. And it's not just like one physical universe. So let's say there's several. Let's say like 6 or 7. I don't have an exact number yet, but all I heard was several. And let's just say like there's 6 or 7 of these separately existing like physical universes within infinite space-time. It's not just one. When I had asked, well, how many dimensions exist, within my physical universe, this one section of our contained Big Bang? And the answer was, so hundreds. It's in the hundreds, believe it or not. There's hundreds of dimensions where life exists. So kind of like we see the stars and galaxies, and we have our sun and planet and everything like this collection of relative and relevant physicality that we call life. There's hundreds of these overlapping each other that were all caused by this one explosion. So other forms of life existing on lighter frequencies or even more dense frequencies. And there's hundreds of these. I believe, if I heard the number right, there's over 1,200 dimensions total split out between these several so-called universes, if that makes sense, if I'm saying this right. So, and I found that to be amazing. So not only is there other life within, that's physical like you and me, but they exist highly evolved in other dimensions too, that are all evolved from these original, each one of these universes had their own explosion that created this. So I was like, man, that's interesting. And then this federation, this galactic federation that exists, covers all of them, believe it or not. So their presence is everywhere. Beyond that, I don't know too much other than, beings evolved into each one of these, and then like these several sections, these universes, and then one traveled to another. They found it and they communicated with it and are in contact with it. So this federation exists among every single universe. I hate saying universe because that implies just one. But, each one of these multi-dimensional sections of reality that exist within infinite space-time. So they span, and these are the only like sectioned off multi-dimensional universes they're aware of. that exist right now. That's it. So there is a finite number physically that exist. And it kind of paints an amazing story of existence and reality and more life out there. We're so caught up down here on Earth sometimes in our own lives and versions of what's important and how things work and what the truth is. And if this information, which is getting there, I think in the next few years, we're going to reach a point of full disclosure. And they're very careful about unleashing it, and understand why, because this will upend everything. I mean, this is like science fiction, but this is an existing reality, not something. This is something we have to evolve and strive to. But we are within this network of hundreds and hundreds in the realm of, if I'm correct, over 1,200 dimensions that already harbor life. Like, Star Trek isn't something we're going to realize one day. It exists already, and we're like the new planet, or the new kids that have just recently evolved. If you think about it, I mean, our technology, a couple hundred years ago, we didn't have cars and cell phones. Not even 40, 50 years ago. When I was a little kid, we didn't have cell phones. It's crazy. So we had cars, of course, but so like, we've come a long way, and things have grown exponentially so fast in the past 100 years. It's ridiculous. And this continues to compound, and we'll just see more and more realized truths and knowledge as we explore space, not just this space, but other dimensional space too. And it's mind blowing, and it will change the way we believe in things, and how we experience reality even. So I don't even know where to stop or start. I keep going at this point, so I think I'm going to stop right there, because that's I talked a lot longer than I wanted to. Sorry, but there's a lot of fascinating information in there, if you think about it. And hopefully I explained it right, because I'm trying to understand it at a layman's level. And I'm no expert, but try to understand the basic concepts, and then be able to share what I learned and see what you're, because there's a lot of you who already know this stuff, and may have insight into that kind of thing. So thank you for watching for now, and I will continue to share this stuff. My goal is to, and I feel like, at least for me personally, we all have our own beliefs and everything, but I'm reaching this point where I have my own complete idea and belief system as far as where everything comes from, and being able to explain it. What makes sense to me and may not make sense to you, and everybody has their own belief again, but like my own system of belief, where I have faith in the truth, in where everything comes from, what this is exactly, what are we experiencing in life, and like, where do we go, like what happens when we die. So but what's unfolding for me anyways is just a very massive and amazing, and just amazing story as far as the nature of existence, and the fact that we even exist at all, and we will continue to exist forever. And I can't stress that enough. My understanding is that, when we die, we are immortal, and the afterlife is where infinite possibility is realized, more so than in the physical dimension. So in the spiritual realms, infinite possibility is an ongoing and ever continuing and expanding truth. So there's still limits in the physical dimensions as far as how much we can realize infinity. And of course, we're mortal, so we can die. But that's our souls cannot. So once we die, we will continue to exist. And when we arrive there, it's a perfect place where everything is possible. And it's a nice story. It's nice to have faith in something like that. And that's for all of us. And when we all die, we all have a very objective and identical process we go through, to where we're, healed and made whole, and explained how everything works, and are in a perfect state of health and joy and positive emotions, and from then on you move into infinity, and you can experience it and explore it however you want to. But that kind of makes, for good, bad, or otherwise, this physical experience we're having very rare and very unique, that we were even born in the physical half of existence. And for me anyways, gives some sort of solace, because it's not perfect on Earth, and it's not great, and it could be a lot better. So just the fact that a better tomorrow exists for all of us and is inevitable and is a truth, and we'll all realize that someday, I find comforting and great. So anyway, excuse me. Anyways, thank you for watching, and you guys take care, and appreciate you listening. Let me know what you think or your thoughts, and I'll continue to share mine on my channel. So, all right, we'll take care. We'll see you later.